We're delighted that you could join us for this session on MSME partnership between India and the US. India thrives and grows on MSME market. And when we look at the opportunity which India provides to US companies investing in MSME market is tremendous. And our session today is basically is a conversation with Mr. A.K. Sharma, Secretary, Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. And it's important to understand, we've known Mr. Sharma for many, many years, from his Gujarat days to his PMO tenure. And one thing I can tell you is in my experience, he has been very open, transparent, willing to work with the US companies to explore how you can have a win-win partnership. I will ask Chetan Krishnaswamy, as the Vice President of Public Policy, Amazon, to set the scene. But once again, Rajan, Chetan, and Mr. Sharma, welcome to the session itself.
Mukesh, and great to be back once again. Across the world, sadly, the pandemic is decimating livelihoods and economies. India is no different. The numbers are steadily rising and there seems to be no respite. By all measures, this is only set to grow and linger on for time. India has seen a number of its economic indicators contract in the last few months. As per the provisional estimates released by the National Statistics Office yesterday, India's GDP growth is contracted by 23.9% in the first quarter of FY21. This is the largest quarterly slump in economic growth recorded since quarterly estimates were first published in 1996. Minister Goyal a short while ago mentioned that this perhaps is a temporary blip before India starts making steady progress. However, India's micro, small, medium enterprises are perhaps the worst hit owing to the size, scope, and capital output ratio of their businesses. The reciprocal effect on unemployment, given that they account for the largest share of the workforce, is expected to be significant. However, MSMEs have been rightly recognized by the government as the segment that deserves the highest focus to rekindle the economy. MSMEs have been one of the key growth accelerators of the Indian economy, as all of us know, with a contribution of about 30% of the country's GDP. They are also an integral part of the overall supply chain and contribute almost half of overall exports. MSMEs are also intertwined to the rural sector, as significant numbers operate in tier 2, 3, 4 towns and cities, and of course the rural hinterlands. However, despite all of this, there is general acceptance of the fact and clear evidence that digital technology will act as a game changer for MSMEs in terms of the ways of doing business and lead to structural transformation of enterprises to bridge the distance between hope and opportunity, as our Prime Minister very eloquently put a couple of days back. Equipping small businesses with relevant digital tools and opportunities is the way to move forward to realize the vision of a self-reliant India. Whether it is online education services or telehealth platforms, small businesses made education and healthcare accessible to millions of Indians almost overnight. Meanwhile, e-commerce marketplaces are already helping enhance the value created by small businesses in the physical world by enabling access to larger domestic and international markets, tracking of goods and services, automation of order handling, and so on. Exports has been the one bright spot. So from an Amazon standpoint, we have 60,000 small sellers exporting to consumers across 160 countries. The program has seen tremendous growth since inception. Just to give you, interesting piece of statistic, it took 3 years for us to get to the first $1 billion, and the next billion came in less than 18 months flat. Amazon Global Selling as a program has achieved a significant milestone of 2 billion in cumulative e-commerce exports from India in 2020, which is just a testament to the success and resilience and sort of enterprise of our MSMEs in global markets. The goal is to take this to $10 billion by 2025. Very quickly, most companies present here have demonstrated their commitment to India through their renewed investment and would love to work as partners with the government going forward. Like most other companies, Amazon has taken some aggressive goals. We have announced an additional investment of $1 billion to digitize micro, small enterprises and traders across the country, with the goal of bringing more than 10 million Indian businesses online by 2025. We will also create 1 million new jobs in India by 2025 through continued investment in technology, infrastructure, and logistics network. To very quickly introduce the two gentlemen here who obviously don't need any introduction, is MSME Secretary A.K. Sharma, who during his previous stints at the Prime Minister's office and the Gujarat government has worked on multiple projects that today are critical growth engines for the Indian economy. He took over as Secretary MSME at what is a particularly challenging time. We also have Rajan Anandan, a stalwart mentor friend the industry looks up to, and with whom I've had the privilege of working in my previous stint at Google. Rajan is currently Managing Director at Sequoia Capital. Rajan, over to you.
Thank you, Chetan, for that introduction. And good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, everyone, depending on where you are. It's truly an honor to be given this opportunity to moderate this discussion with Mr. Sharma, who's the Secretary of the MSME Ministry in India. Mr. Sharma, it's great to see you after some time. You're clearly in the hot seat, given what has happened with COVID and especially the economic impact that we've had on our MSMEs. So what I'd like to do, Mr. Sharma, is before I'll focus most of our discussion on the Indian MSME sector, both the challenges and, more importantly, I think the actions that India is taking for MSMEs and also the opportunities that we have in MSMEs. But before we get to that, obviously, given the broad set of roles that you've played over the last 4 or 5 years, working with our Honorable Prime Minister, as well as the fact that you're very close to what is happening in the country, I want to start the care crisis. India took very bold and decisive steps in the early days of COVID. And I must say, as citizens of India, we are all incredibly grateful and thankful for the actions that were taken. If not for these decisive actions, we would be in a very, very different place today. All that being said, as we know, cases continue to rise, and India today has the highest number of new COVID cases a day in the world. It would be great, Mr. Sharma, if you could start by sharing with us how the government is planning to contain the spread of COVID over the coming months. It looks like we're still going to be quite some ways away, even if we have a vaccine over the next several months. It'll be some time before 1.4 billion Indians have access to that vaccine. So we'd love to maybe have you start by sharing some thoughts on what are the government's plans on controlling and mitigating, I should say, continuing to keep in check COVID over the next several months.
I am not directly dealing with this subject, but still, from my personal perspective, I would like to give you some ideas. You see, when the pandemic struck, you all must be aware that India was among those countries which was not prepared for the whole problem. If you recall, we started by importing very basic items like PPEs and masks and sanitization pumps and sanitization bottles. But within a very short time, India is now among those countries which has, in fact, started exporting these items. So we have developed our own resilience to cope up with this pandemic, and our people have learned how to cope up with the challenge. I can see among the very remote localities and illiterate people also, the basic precautions like wearing a mask or keeping certain hygiene precautions, they have gone deep into the society, and thanks to the call of our Prime Minister and his education and his guidance to the nation, each one of us has started living a life which is COVID compliant. So I'm not worried on that. I'm not worried on that account. Of course, rising cases are a matter of concern, but at the same time we have laid down arrangements. For example, you must be aware that one reason of increased cases is that the number of testings have gone tremendously up. Similarly, we have been able to lay down infrastructure for taking care of the patients in various parts of the country, various hospitals, even smaller hospitals. And the third aspect is that which I am personally looking after is the voluntary which has emerged as a good caretaker for the COVID patients and the COVID related situations. So have faith in the system, have faith in the society, and I think we will come out very strong out of it.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Sharma. And I must say, look, we live in Delhi, and as you said, Delhi was not prepared, as COVID hit us in early March. And I think thanks to the 70 days or so of shutdown that we had, and the progressive and very, very quick actions that were taken, both at the center and the states, I do completely agree with you that, whether it's hospital beds, whether it's ICU wards, whether it's PPE equipment, tracing, etc. I think it was. I was amazed to see how quickly we actually moved. And Delhi today is only at about 10 or 15% capacity utilization on the beds. So thank you for that. And let's hope that we can continue to keep it in check and keep the infrastructure ahead of disease, if you will. Now, moving to the overall, shifting gears, Mr. Sharma, to the overall economy, as we all know, I think yesterday's GDP numbers were on the one hand surprising, 23% contraction in the June quarter. But then again, if you look at an economy where, I think given the nature of India, we had to be in full lockdown for 70 days is actually not that surprising. In fact, I think a lot of people were surprised. I personally was not surprised. Now, the government's been taking a lot of actions. Obviously, there's been a lot of announcements starting in April and in May. But as we sit here, the first week of September, Mr. Sharma, and we look at sort of the broader economic recovery. I'm now thinking more than just the MSME sector. What would be the 3 or 4 most important actions the government has either taken or that you think will happen over the next 30, 60 days that will help us with this recovery?
You see, many of us, as you said, given the long haul of the lockdown period, and which saved our society to a great extent, that was a very right decision at the right time. But it had to have its adverse impact on the economy. Government did respond by way of stimulus packages, and I'm sure it is going to help us. When I come to MSME, the question you asked as to which are the sectors where government has taken most decisive steps, and that was, to my mind, that was towards flow of credit. In spite of all the challenges, in spite of all the perception and all the issues, government has moved very decisively in terms of seeing that credit reaches to the concerned sectors of economy, particularly the MSMEs. And I'm happy to say that this action has started giving results on the ground. The second aspect which I would like to recall is that RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, has played a very confidence boosting actor, and it has responded very proactively toward every 15 days, 20 days, RBI has been with the economy and its sectors. So I'm very hopeful that government would find ways to manage the situation. Many of us, including many economic advisors, also they had already talked about a V-shaped recovery. We will go to the bottom, but we will come up very quickly. So perhaps now September onwards, we will see the upward trend, and I'm personally very hopeful that we'll come out of this situation. Particularly because of the government's proactive action, and also I have always been a believer in the inherent strength, fundamental strength of the Indian society and Indian economy. For example, as you said, as you know, we are ourselves, see, when the global supply chains are disrupted, you know that India itself is a huge market. So we are not, uh, we don't have to worry about the rest of the world and the breakage in the global supply chain. If we can produce, there is a lot of consumption going to happen in the country itself. So demand side, which is a challenge right now for the producers, is going to be taken care of very soon. Similarly, our human material, our human resource is very resilient. They can work hard. They can uh, uh, cope up with the challenges of nature. They can cope up with the challenges of this thing. Monsoon, we are having a good monsoon this year, so this is again going to play a very important and very positive role in our economy. So I am personally very confident that given the care which government has taken at the for the lowest strata of the economy, which is the MSME sector, through micro credit and micro management techniques, including internet and digital interventions, and our resilient nature, our hopefulness. I think we are going to come very strong. We are going to come out very strongly.
Terrific. So it sounds like, Mr. Sharma, you're saying, you are expecting that we will have a V-shaped recovery. Is that fair to say? That's what
Yeah, I think
that's
so.
what we're
I
expecting?
think so. I think so.
Terrific. Let's hope so. Just staying with the overall economy for 1 or 2 more minutes. Make in India for the world seems to be a renewed mantra for the Indian government. The government has been trying hard to give an impetus to manufacturing and to exports for a long time. I wanted to get your sense, because you also have a very good view into this, because we have such a large number of MSMEs in sectors like apparel, and so on, textiles, apparel, and so on. Are you beginning to see, Chetan in his introduction talked about how exports from Indian small business, small enterprise MSMEs gone from $0 to $2 billion over the last 4 years. What are you seeing in the last 4 or 5 months, Mr. Sharma? Are you seeing sort of this Indian manufacturing, this renaissance, if we can call it that, of Indian manufacturing beginning to happen, from a small business standpoint?
Yeah, first of all, I missed Chetan. I wanted to say hi to him. Thanks Chetan for introducing that issue. You see, the Indian, as I said, the best thing about the Indian manufacturing sector, though we might be perceived as having a lack of high technology and niche technologies, but the strength of our economy, particularly of our SME sector, is that the turnaround time is very less. You see, I was amazed. In fact, I was given the task of representing one of those groups which was responsible for procuring these medical and auxiliary items to fight the COVID pandemic. And in the very first meeting, all of us were very depressed as to how we will get these essential items. But within 15 days, we spoke to a few industries. We spoke to a few people in the industry. This thing, and you see where we stand today. So the best thing about us is that our turnaround time is very, very less. As I said earlier, our people know how to respond to a challenge, how to respond to a situation, and that reflects in our MSMEs also, in small businesses and manufacturing units also. Now, I'll not repeat again those examples, but uh, as we are trying to add to that strength of our small manufacturers and medium size manufacturers. For example, in my own ministry, we have technology centers and tool rooms, which were set up long 2 3 decades back, and they have been contributing immensely in the manufacturing, designing, and all that. But we took this opportunity to strengthen them and give them more funding, more liberty to experiment with things and design things which can be useful in the COVID this thing. And I'm surprised that in my own tenure of 3 months in this ministry, many of them have started producing, designing, molding, and redesigning many of these COVID-related materials, including medical items and auxiliaries. So this is our strength. This is our strength, that we take very less time, we take very minimal resources in responding to a situation. So when it comes to exports also, uh, you know that chloroquine was supplied by Indian companies in those very grave days when there was complete lockdown and complete logistical breakdown. So I'm very hopeful that our manufacturing capacity, in fact, I can see that many of our MSMEs, they have not only started coming down for production, they have many of them have started their capacities, but they are trying to take advantage of this opportunity. You have also mentioned, right, how to convert this crisis into an opportunity. So they are looking at the whole thing as partly as an opportunity, and they are trying to take advantage of that. And also they are trying to learn new technology, as Chetan mentioned. We all know, we not only in the ministry but even our MSME associations, MSME units, and their representatives, they have been talking about the limitations of physical exhibitions, physical shows, accessibility of marketing and all that. So obviously they are trying to go digital. They are trying to go online for marketing and many other things, including contact building and all that. So this is a very exciting phase as secretary of the ministry, and we are trying to give our helping hand to our units.
Perfect. Just on the on this on a similar lines, Mr. Sharma. So COVID, I want to get your thoughts on how COVID has impacted the process of globalization. On the one hand, as we know, for the last 2 decades, the world has been getting flatter. Where as the world gets more connected, we're seeing more engagement. We just talked about how some set of companies obviously benefiting from them. But on the other hand, we're also witnessing increased protectionism across the world, right? Almost in every country. And many believe that the Atmanirbhar campaign is a step towards protectionism. I know Minister Piyush Goyal addressed that on his speech this morning, that it's not. But I'd love to get your thoughts on, what does this really mean, and what does it specifically mean for the MSME sector in India, Mr. Sharma?
See, about the world, perhaps you know better than me that pandemic has posed challenges, posed rethink. I mean, it has necessitated a lot of rethinking in many of the aspects of our living, of our life, which includes international politics, international commerce, international relations, and everything possible. Coming to Atmanirbhar, Rajan, you being an Indian and understanding Hindi, I would like to tell other participants that It literally means self-reliance. Okay, Honorable Prime Minister also added along with that Hindi word, self-reliant India. Okay, so being self-reliant is not to be protectionist. That is the first thing which I would like to say. If I produce something of fully which is needed by me, there is no element of protectionism which comes into that. And I am very entitled for thinking in that line. I am very entitled for managing on those thoughts. So I would like to allay those fears or those misconceptions. What this campaign or what this call means is that we should try to be self-reliant. We should try to add value in what we are doing. What we are producing. If you recall the speech of our Honorable Prime Minister on this Independence Day, which has passed 15 days back, uh, uh, he said value addition. If we are calling for value addition on our main products, or mineral products, or agricultural products, this is of course not protectionism. So basically, it is what Atmanirbhar Bharat calls for is to add to our own strength. And then if something needs to be exported, we will export. If something needs to be imported, we will import in that process. But essentially, Atmanirbhar Bharat is a call for all of us to see that we produce well, we produce zero defect and zero effect goods, which are acceptable not only in the Indian market, but they are acceptable in the world market as well.
Terrific. No, that's I think very helpful for the global audience and the American audience to hear that what it really means. As you described it, Mr. Sharma. Now on SMEs, just getting into a little more detail on SMEs. As you said clearly, the first big priority was to make sure that SMEs has access to credit. I think the government and central bank and everybody else has been doing what they can. But also going beyond that, now the question is how can they focus on growing their businesses? Firstly, restarting and then growing their businesses. And as you had mentioned, Mr. Sharma, technology can play a big role. I must tell you that at Sequoia we have many companies, startups that we've invested in that work with MSMEs across sectors, from the kirana stores to manufacturing to education, to even housewives and so on. And the kind of adoption that we have seen of digital products and services, everything from embracing online commerce to embracing online payments, to digital tools to make them productive, has been quite amazing to see, Mr. Sharma, especially over the last 4 or 5 months in India. But I want to get your thoughts on, from your ministry's standpoint, what are the kinds of initiatives that will be driving, or the ministry will be driving, to make sure that every single one of the 50 million small businesses, MSMEs in India, can benefit from digital and technology, right? Because in many ways, Mr. Sharma, as you know, digital is the grand enabler. It is the ultimate enabler. It gives every small business the ability to compete head to head with the largest companies in the world. And it'd be helpful to hear your thoughts on what are the plans to, ensure 100% penetration of these set of tools, products, services that can benefit small businesses.
Very nicely put, Rajan. Thank you very much for bringing in this issue. Uh, I will divide this whole discourse into two parts. One is the intervention made by the government in a little more details, and then I will come on the technology aspect, which particularly the ministry and we have undertaken right now. See, uh, I joined this ministry on 1st May, and on 2nd May, I was called by Honorable Prime Minister to discuss what should be done about the MSMEs. So since I had worked with him, I had a rapport with him. He called me immediately without even giving me 24 hours as to what needs to be done, and I went and I presented whatever I had learned from the from the colleagues in the ministry, and he listened for 2 hours as to what needs to be done. And 10 days thereafter, on 13th May, a full package, which you mentioned, Atmanirbhar Bharat package, was announced, and MSMEs were very important part, found very important part in that entire scheme of things called Atmanirbhar Bharat package. Just to name a few interventions which Honorable Finance Minister had announced as part of the package. You may be already knowing that it had interventions on the equity financing. It had interventions on the debt financing. It had interventions on the MSME receivables and all kinds of that. We have since then we have structured those schemes, and I'm happy to say that most of those schemes have already are already in place. They have already started delivering to the MSMEs. For example, the collateral-free loan, it has already started reaching to the MSMEs, and more than 1 lakh crores have already been disbursed out of that. Then we had a stress fund that also has been structured, and the banks have started working on that credit line. Similarly, we had interventions on the equity side as well. I will come little later because we have a dedicated question on fund of funds. So I will talk about that little later. So whether it is equity, whether it is loan, whether it is extending the moratorium, whether it is deferring the payments, or whether it is waiving or relaxing a few more conditions for the MSMEs. Government took a series of decisions, series of interventions, and I'm happy to say that we in the ministry have been able to structure them so that they start reaching to the target MSMEs. Now, coming to the technology, Rajan, I would invite you to sometime give little more time to what we are doing in my ministry. Technology was one of the biggest interventions which I myself undertook for the ministry. As I said, I took over on 1st May, and on 9th May, we launched a portal. In fact, on the day of joining, I had told my colleagues that we have to work day and night and see that something new, something good is presented to the MSME sector. And you will recognize the fact that in such a situation particularly, and even in general, grievance redressal of small units is a very important issue. As to someone is not getting credit, someone is not getting raw material, someone is not getting the wherewithal of logistics, someone's truck with raw material has been held up at some places, someone's electricity connection has been disconnected. So all these issues, small issues which the pandemic had forced on the MSMEs, were coming on our head. So we worked day and night. We launched a portal, and I invite all of you as technology experts to visit that portal. We called it Champions. We said that Champions is meant for hand-holding the MSMEs in the present situation, and also to see that some of them are made and converted into national and international champions. So what we have done, we have put up a huge portal with facility of grievance, lodging of grievances by any person sitting at any place in the country. Along with that, we have set up 66 in a model of hub and spoke. We have set up 66 control rooms across the country, which are also digitally connected through this portal, and also through telephone lines and video conferencing facilities. And as soon as a grievance is lodged in our portal, it gets reflected into the section, somebody sitting at X place in the country or Y place in the country, and then that control room is supposed to tackle that grievance locally and talk to the state unit or talk to the district unit of administration. So this was on the very ninth day of my joining, we launched it, and I'm happy to report that thousands and thousands of grievances, thousands and thousands of issues have been sorted out with the help of direct intervention of our teams sitting across the country. I'm trying to empower this mechanism with artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I would not name the company, but we have started working one of those your leading companies, and they have offered pro bono to help us in that process. We are working on that. In fact, partly we have already implemented some of those interventions. Similarly, I would give another example, and the other was MSME receivables. As you know, MSMEs supply the goods and services to many buyers, but they are not paid on time. This is a very chronic and very perennial problem in our system and perhaps everywhere. So for that also we have put up an online tracking system, and whereby we are tracking the government of India's ministries and government of India's public sector enterprises as to what kind of pendency is there in terms of MSME receivables. We have also we are trying to empower the trades mechanism, the GEM mechanism, which have been put in place by the government. The third intervention which we have made, and which was actually announced part of Atmanirbhar Bharat package, was new definition of the MSME. We have upgraded the ceiling limits of MSMEs, and now, in fact, it has gone up by four to five times. Now, you know that in India, the ease of doing business is a huge problem, and having faith and trust on the stakeholder is a huge issue in our system. But we in the ministry, we have designed a new registration process for as per the new definition, which is totally based on self-declaration. We are not expecting any document or any details based on any document from the registrant. He can just put his Aadhaar number, and if he has a PAN number, he can just put his number. And we worked relentlessly with the income tax department and the GST system, so that the turnover and the investment details are integrated backward in the back end by the income tax and the GST systems. So we have provided a completely online, paperless, and seamless system for registration of MSMEs as per the new definition. Eventually, we are also working on integrating this whole thing seamlessly with our GEM facility and the trades facility, which is for procurement from the MSMEs and for bill discounting facility. So we are very aware that technology is the only perhaps solution in this grave situation, and we have done a number of interventions, and a number of interventions are still on our hand. For example, we are right now, what Chetan mentioned is at our hand, and we are trying to develop a marketing mechanism as to how to put our MSMEs on online marketing platforms, particularly those which are already existing. And we are also trying to develop something new in our own ministry, and we are very aggressively working on it. Maybe in the course of a month or two, we'll come out with that.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Mr. Sharma. I know we are out of time. I have many more questions that we could go on for hours. But firstly, thank you again. I think on behalf of India, we are thankful that you are leading the MSME ministry, the lifeblood of India's economy. And for those of you who are listening in from around the world, I mean, India's MSME sector really is the $1 trillion opportunity. So whether you're a business focused on SMEs or an investor focused on MSMEs, I'd encourage all of you to look at it. So thank you very much, Mr. Sharma, for spending time with us. And it's great to hear your perspectives on what you're doing on MSMEs.
Thank you, Rajan. Thank you, Mukesh and Chetan and everybody else.